Hey there guys, how's it going? Reaper here, back with another painting video. This time around it's another Reaper Bones from the Bones 4 Kickstarter. This is a part of the Pathfinder icon set, and this is Zadim, I think it's pronounced. He's a very much sort of Persian looking warrior, so Zadim kind of sounds right. And it took me a while to actually find this name because it doesn't tell you in the Kickstarter, which means when I come down to doing the next set of Pathfinder icons, it's going to be a nightmare for me to find the name again. Either way, he's actually quite a cool looking character, and the actual character is odd. He's essentially a cleric that isn't a cleric. He's a fighter from the look of it, which is an odd combination, but it kind of works. And it's a cool backstory that I might have to steal at some point when I eventually make some more NPCs for my game. But anyway, we've already halfway through this colour again, and we primed it in our usual grey primer as we always do, and I'm using deep blue from Army Painter for the base layer of majority of this mini. There we go, that was it for the deep blue. Now we're moving on to Crusted Saw for, it's essentially sort of a sash that's used as a belt as well. It's quite a long piece of fabric from the look of it. It wraps around his waist and then across his shoulder as well. But this is essentially what is holding all of his equipment. Like everything is attached to this. And that was it for the sash. And then we're moving on to Desert Yellow, which is for the skin tones. He's got that sort of Persian sort of skin tone, and my darkest skin tone is called Tanned Flesh for Army Painter, and it's not quite the right shade. So I went for Desert Yellow, and then the wash is going to sort of brown it up a bit, and it will look more like it should do. And that is one thing I will say, never be afraid to use a different colour for flesh that isn't actually named after flesh. So I've got several paint colours that are Corpse Pale, Barbarian Flesh, Tan Flesh, Elven Flesh. Like, generally most people will use a flesh colour for flesh, but you can use literally anything you want. And it works if you get the right shade. And we've already moved on to the next colour as well, which is Nokomis Cloak. And this is for his boots and all his little pouches and things. Yeah, that was almost it. I did actually miss something which I do come back and do now, which is his handguards as well are in Nokomis Cloak, and it just sort of finishes it off. It looks like there's sort of fabric going up under the braces, and it has to come all the way down as well, otherwise it looks funny. But now that's done, we go on to ash grey for... With the concept art, it looks like a pale blue, so I've gone with ash grey, and then because I know I'm doing a blue wash, it'll make it a pale blue. This is for the headband, and he's got a few other bits and pieces around the body of this colour. That was it for ash grey. And now we're moving on to something that's not army painted for once. This is Vallejo's game colour Plague Brown. And if you guys are just starting out painting, I would recommend Vallejo's game colours range, as they have very good coverage. Like, this is a thin down paint and it just goes on like nothing. And it is a very yellowy colour. So I'm using it as a sort of underlayer to gold, as well as there are actually gold parts as well. And this is probably the most fiddliest part of this mini. In the artwork, he's got sort of gold trim around all of his robes, so I'm just adding that in on some of the more pronounced areas. I don't want to copy the concept art completely, because that is way too complicated to be doing with a brush, and I don't plan on using this mini that often, so there's no real need to put a load of effort in. But I want to get at least like the similar looking feel. And the gold trim on the blue looks really nice in the end, actually. Yeah, I'm doing this bit, my camera actually just dies at this point, but I don't actually finish off that part as I realise it's not right and should not be there. So I quickly wash that off with a little bit of just water. If you get on quick enough, you can cover it and just wash off the paint if you thin it down quickly on the model. But now the gold is done, we're moving on to Ultramarine Blue, and this is the highlight for the blue robes. That was it for Ultramarine Blue. Now we're on to Shining Silver. This is for the start of all the sort of metallic things, like his two swords and his buckles as well. I do all the buckles on the pouches in this just to make them pop out that little bit. And that was it for Shining Silver. Now we're on to Greedy Gold for the sort of shield symbol that he's got on his chest and the 2 braces. And as you can tell, that playground is very much a similar color to the gold. So painting gold over there, it just looks, well, gold and shiny. Whereas I find if you paint gold over other colors, it's sort of semi-transparent. It doesn't work as well. But that was it for gold, and now we're on to leather brown for the 2 sheaths on his back. And I had way too much paint on my brush at that point, so I ended up using that one as sort of my own palette just to get more paint onto the brush, instead of trying to scoop it all off and it would just make a mess. You just slowly take it off as you use the paint. That was it for Lead Belcher. Now on to Dungeon Grey for essentially a edge highlight on all of the pouches, or all of the Necromancer's Cloak, just to sort of pop it out a little bit, because when the wash goes on it's going to get really dark, so a little edge highlight just makes it stand out that bit more. And that was it for all the highlights. Now we're moving on to washes, which is blue tone is the first wash, and that's all over the blue and the Necromancer's Cloak. And of course the blue sort of edging around, or the gold edging around the blue, also gets used in this wash. It just sort of helps it blend a little bit, but I would probably recommend trying to avoid it if I was going to do it again, because I will need to go over it afterwards. Although I don't in this video, as it works, it's just not as poppy out as I would want it to be. Now that blue tone's done, move on to soft tone for everything else. And once soft tone is done, I wait for it to dry and I do a black base, which I actually have lost the footage for, so I don't have. But that is the end of the mini, and there are the final images. It's actually quite a good image to paint, like a good mini to paint, and I like doing the edge highlighting, something I haven't done for a long time. I'll probably be doing it again in the future. But if you enjoyed the video, guys, like and subscribe if you did, and I will catch you soon in the next one. See ya.